this long, you have me fucking crying? Come on, man.
That's probably the most important podcast we've done.
Welcome to the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast, where we cover anything related to behavior change that will increase your long-term wellness and happiness. And now, here are your hosts, personal trainer and RNs, Matt and Jenna.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast. My name is Matt, and...
Hey, I'm Jenna.
She's back. She is back. I'm so fired up about it. In the past few episodes, you guys have heard me say Jenna has been taking a little bit of a hiatus, taking some mental health time. How you feeling, babe?
Good.
Yeah?
Good. Yeah.
Good. Right on.
I'll get into that in a minute. We talk about our gratitude point.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Today, well, wait a minute. Before I dive all the way in, this podcast is all about, see, I'm all tripped up because you're back. So I've started getting used to you not being here. So anyway, if you're new to this podcast, I truly appreciate you sliding by. I'm a registered nurse and a personal trainer. Jenna is also a registered nurse. This podcast is all about implementing behavior change for your long-term wellness and happiness. We're friggin' nerds when it comes to the fitness stuff. But the mental fitness is where it's at. That's what we really believe in. And today is going to be so damn fun. We have a guy on that we've never met. We met him through the internet. It's truly unique how we've met this guy. And I just could not be more fired up to talk about this. We met because of one of the movies that we've watched that we made a video on. He reacted to us reacting. I'm just losing my mind over here. Jenna, you want to intro him for me? Because I haven't built him up enough.
Yeah, that was a good intro.
Thank you.
I like it. So, Jon Knight, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Hello. What's going on, guys? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So happy to have you on. So while recording this, last night we recorded a podcast, a video, whatever you want to call it. We live streamed on his channel on YouTube, started to dive into the topic a little bit of what we're going to dive in deeply here. But I don't know. I could feel you through the screen, my guy, and I can't wait to dive into this.
Yeah, I had a good time last night.
For sure. We'll dive into it.
Very fun. Thank you again.
It was.
I loved it.
It was very fun. At the top of every show, we always hit you with our
gratitude point.
Hey.
Gratitude point.
Hey. Oh, okay. Hey, all right.
I've been waiting to hear Jenna say gratitude point for a few weeks now, so I was happy to hear that. This gratitude point is something that is meant to shift your perspective. Could be something huge, could be something small. It only matters if it matters to you. So, since you're back, I'm going to make you go first. What's your gratitude point, Jenna?
Okay.
Ooh, do the honors.
So, this is a little bit longer one, so stay with me. I did take a few weeks away from the podcast and kind of stepping back from some of the content. As I've mentioned in some previous podcasts, something that I struggle with every day is anxiety and depression, and I've just really not been in a good place. And it has nothing to do with not having a great life or not having a great life partner. It's just my brain and the way it functions. And sometimes I do really great and sometimes I just don't. And I've just been kind of in this tailspin for a while. And I just I didn't catch a hold of it like I should have. So I've taken a couple weeks to just try to reset and start inching back towards the things that make my brain work the way I want it to. And happiness is always the goal, and giving in to that voice that tells me to not do something constantly. It's a constant, never-ending voice in my head that says, don't do that today. You need a break. You need time. You need that cupcake. You need to do this. This is better for you. Don't go work out. Stay in bed longer. You give into that voice enough and it really affects how your brain functions. which in turn affects how your body functions. And anyway, I'll stop going down that rabbit trail. But I've taken the last couple of weeks to really try to reset, and I feel refreshed, and I feel like I've reset myself back on the right path. And I'm really grateful for Matt. He always calls me on my bullshit, and very lovingly. He's very patient, and I appreciate you, and I'm very grateful for you and the way that you love me.
So he's over there clapping. So and not to dive too deep into it, but if you're comfortable with it, what makes you say that? And this is not to highlight me, but I think this gives context as from a relationship standpoint, because that's really tough to be on my side of it, or from the husband side, or the opposite side. Like, what the hell do you do? So why did you just say that?
Yeah, I feel for you. Because that's a really precarious balance that you maintain very well. And it's taken 11 years to get here. Sure. And I think learning ourselves and knowing each other, I think better than we know ourselves almost, where, you made a comment to me, like 2 weeks ago, that you're like, I'm really concerned about your mental health. You really feel like you're tail spinning like you did several years ago. And, I don't know, it's like you were in my head, because that same day, I had this just overwhelming feeling of just hopelessness. Like, I feel myself sliding over the edge of that cliff, and I don't know what to do to stop it. I think it's just going to happen. And that feeling of hopelessness of I'm just falling back into that abyss that I tried so hard to get out of for so many years. And you felt it. And you know me that well. You know my anxiety and you know that so well. And it just really snapped. Like, it made me like, okay, it's not just me. What do I need to do? Like, what are all these things that I've just embedded into my everyday life that I just stopped doing? And it's just the little things that I've started doing again, and it just makes me feel like I've lifted out of the fog so quickly.
So, and again, we're gonna, John, you're gonna talk at some point here, bro. I promise. But, so tell me, was it the point where you had said something, and then I remember you saying, I don't know how to get out of this. Mm-hmm. I remember that very vividly, in the hopelessness, in how the inflection in your voice. I could just feel it on you. You're 1,000% right. Was it the moment that I said, start with physical, start with something physical?
Yeah.
Was that it? I forget.
Yeah. And it was just like, I felt myself the last couple of months. I've just been very quick to be frustrated and angry. And I've, I think, as we all do, that comes out not really meaning to, but just the closest person to you usually gets that, whether it's their fault or not. And you've really taken that, and you've really readjusted your schedule, and, tried so hard when I've just been so nitpicky about stupid stuff, that when you stopped and said that, I think it just made it so real. Yeah. Like, okay, this is a hard stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good on you for sharing that, because I know that it struck a chord with somebody, because you're not the only one, so I appreciate it. Seriously. I love you to death. Wow. All right.
Yeah, no, that was awesome.
I've talked enough. She's talked enough. John, if you have a gratitude point, hit us with it, good sir.
So this is gonna be a very, in-depth, deep show, and I'm excited.
It's gonna be woo-woo as hell. I can't wait. Let's do this.
Yes. And I honestly want to essentially kind of piggyback off that a bit, because I did mention this briefly on my show. Just the overall aspect of being grateful for life right now, because I am someone who also struggles deeply with anxiety and depression, especially anxiety. We are great friends. And I don't want to try to go too like long with it, but I want to bring this awareness to it because people are aware of anxiety, but they're not fully aware of how mentally just crippling and disabling it can be.
Yeah.
And how serious it is. A lot of people just think, oh, just go see somebody, go talk to somebody. It's all in your head. Blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
It's never that simple. So I'm grateful for life in this instance because I'm someone who every day feels like their body is going through something that could potentially just end my life. My anxiety is so in tune that I feel everything that goes on. And this is weird because I don't open up about this most often. I feel every little thing within the body that could possibly feel wrong or be wrong. And it's constantly making me thinking, oh, I'm having a heart attack. Oh, I can't breathe. Oh, there's something wrong with my head. Oh, that's a 24/7 thing.
Okay.
And that impacts my life on a daily.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. So a lot of what you said is like a lot of the people that around me and closest to me get the brunt of that. I am constantly running in and out of hospitals, this and that, because I feel like, oh my God, this is it. Like I'm dying. I'm having a panic attack. I'm doing this. And it provides you that constant fear that you also forget to live the life that you're supposed to, that you're here for. And I'm thankful that I'm still here, that none of these things that I'm feeling are actually, so far what I've been told is what I'm feeling. And the mind is a very powerful thing. It can manifest things beyond what we think are capable. And that's just not just your own mental, just physically. It can run you rampant if you allow it. So I'm just really, to wound it up, I'm just really grateful to have life, to have that interaction with people, to still be enjoying my life and be able to live it. And it's something that I'm fighting for, trying to overcome anxiety and depression every day. And I'm just grateful that I'm still able to do that despite all these challenges.
Awesome. That's unbelievably transparent for you in the first 10 minutes of the 13 minutes of this podcast. So that's, I appreciate you stepping out on the limb and saying that, especially you're saying, I don't share this very often. So thank you. And I know that the audience appreciates that as well. And for you, the audience, understand that if you're new to this podcast, that's the point of everything that we just talked about. Is the perspective shift is being able to appreciate, that he has life right now, regardless of the struggles that he has. And Jenna saying that, her appreciation of me, that little shift, that little just noting that piece is what starts to shift your perspective. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that when I used to not do that, I was a negative person. I take that back. I wasn't a negative person, but I was flawed. I don't even like that word. I wasn't working optimally when I didn't have gratitude. And which leads me to my gratitude point. Something I've thought about so much lately is just fucking be nice. Just be nice in every circumstance. And I have gotten better at that as I've gotten older. I used to have road rage, just like everybody. I'm not unique in that sense, but I have a sense of pride now in the ability to be nice, especially in confrontation. It happened a few days ago. Somebody sort of popped off at me, and my immediate intention back was not anger, was not frustration. It was be nice, because whatever it is, there's something behind those words that's not directed at me. It's something going on with that person. Now, I mean, if you just slap the hell out of somebody, then sure, it's all you. But yeah. I'll encourage you to just be nice. It actually makes you feel incredibly good when you're staring at somebody that wants you to fire back at them, and you're just nice. It totally disarms them. It really does, and it's so much better for the situation. So be nice.
Yeah, and that's a ripple effect too.
It does have a ripple effect.
That knocks down their frustration or anger, which prevents them from popping off at somebody else. And
Yeah. You ever try to swing on somebody that's trying to hug you? Like it's not going to happen. I mean,
does that happen?
That's what I picture in my head. It's like a mental version of that. So,
let's definitely throw them off.
Yeah, right. Like, come on, you don't want to.
Like, what?
Come here, bro. You don't want to hug me.
Right. Bring it in.
Exactly. So let's start it out here. Jenna and I have wanted to talk about this for quite some time, and point blank, we did not feel that we were authority figures in this. We didn't feel that we had experience. We didn't feel that it was point blank. We didn't feel it was right. And we want to talk about it. We want to talk about what is happening in the world right now.
Yeah. And I think a good segue that we've found commonality between the three of us is watching Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I truly believe I literally just want to give a homework assignment to everybody and just say everyone needs to watch Black Panther, and then we can all come back and talk about
absolutely
all this.
Yeah.
You know,
press pause, come back. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start it out here. We're going to talk about Black Panther, but for us, how it affected us, Black Panther was so relevant to what is happening with the riots and all of the injustice and everything that is happening. And I don't know, but I wonder if our connection would have A, happened, and B, hit as hard as it would have as of right now because of the climate. I don't know. So let's start it out by this. Explain how you found us. Well, first of all, who the hell are you? Tell these people, who are you?
Well, yes, so those who don't know my name, I'm go by Jon Knight. I've been a YouTuber for, since 2015.
Okay.
So I am a huge nerd within the industry and entertainment, film. I'm somebody who just loves interacting with his community, both outside and on YouTube, hence also why we are here. So yeah, man, I'm just somebody who really loves and enjoys what they do and meeting the people that I have along the way and those that I will in the future. And I came across you wonderful souls, and now we're here. And it's moments like this that makes me enjoy, doing what I do.
Yeah. Awesome. So we briefly talked about it on his podcast and how you did a reaction to us watching Black Panther. What was so just grabbing about your reaction was you watched us, all of us, in our reaction to Black Panther, but you honed in on the physicality, the facial expressions, our inflection of words, you felt our emotion. You truly tapped into that. So when you put your video out explaining that and feeling that, the Holden Hardman subreddit, shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. This connection, I don't know if it ever would have happened if not for you. I found it in the subreddit. They said this guy, Jon Knight, reacted to Black Panther, and I watched it. It was 11:30 at night. It was a 25-30 minute video, and I was like, you son of a bitch, this is so good, but this is so long. I love it. And I watched every bit of it, and I teared up. I teared up that he got it, that I felt it, and I was like, God, that's incredible that a movie did that.
Right.
So that's how this started. That's why this conversation is happening. Jenna?
Oh, I was just listening to what you're saying.
So let's, I keep saying let's start it off, and we're 20 minutes in. Let's start it off like this. What is it that you felt or saw, or why did you make a video reacting to Black Panther?
I saw, the best way to describe it in a word, then I'll go into it, but the most obvious and present thing that I saw was reality. That's what I saw you guys immediately recognize. Like, holy shit, this is what's happening now. Especially this film that, touches on so many aspects of that. There are people today that are suffering. There's a great injustice in the world going on right now. And when you have people who, aren't Black, recognizing this, feeling this, kind of empathetic to this and wanting to have that impact, and how can we help? What is this? How, like, having that hurt them, impact them, that's a beautiful thing, because that just gets us one step closer into admitting and realizing, seeing what is going on. And, and I mentioned it before and today, and I apologize ahead of time if at some point I do get emotional on this, because it probably will happen.
Don't you hide that shit.
You
better not. You better not. Absolutely not.
I definitely will. I could tell you that. But it's comforting. It's reassuring that not only did you realize this, but a superhero film at that, which, mind you, doesn't feel like one outside of the obvious, brought this connection together in that realization. This point in time in life, we've never had the unity amongst Black people and white people that's been so evident. Yes, we've always had allies, who stood up for it, but we also had a lot of people that were just quiet, sitting back, reserved, or were a part of the problem. These days, we're so unified, and there's so many of our, allies coming together and helping us, fighting with us, aiding us, seeing what's going on, putting their own lives, on the line for us. It's been a very, 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 very long time since we've had that unity amongst us as humans, as a species, as brothers and sisters. And when I saw that video, all of that came to mind. So I'm like, wow, okay, they get it. They feel it. Damn. They see it. So I'll leave it at that for now. But
no, that's incredible. That's great. Yes.
Yeah. I when all of this started happening, I don't even know how long. I feel like we're kind of in like a time warp with COVID and everything. But when all of this kind of came to the forefront, I felt like what my responsibility should be is to step back and to just listen and to take some intentional time to absorb what's being said, to educate myself. And I've always been a proponent of whatever the argument is, listening to both sides. And it really became very obvious, especially living in the South, that there's a lot of errors and in the arguments that I was hearing in fellow Southerners. And it was very, it was emotional that, there's people that are in our lives every day that I don't understand, and I never will, what they've done to get where they've had to endure to get where they are. Where to me, they're just a cool person that I'm friends with or that I work with, or, there's so many layers that I was blind to. It wasn't something that was part of any of my everyday thinking. And one of my favorite people that I really look up to is Brene Brown. She's a social worker. She has a Netflix special. She's got TED Talks. And she did a podcast with an author, Austin Channing Brown. And she wrote this book. I was just about to say, I'm going to go look for a link, and I'll plug it in the description below, guys. She wrote a book called I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. And their podcast, it just, the things that they talked about and the things that she, just pointed out and the different experiences that she's had in her life made me buy her book. And I started listening to her audiobook, and something that Brene mentioned, how she judges a book is how many times she picks it up and throws it while she is reading a book. That's a very exposing book. She says she does it a lot, is that if she has this like aha moment, she literally picks up her book and throws it.
Wow.
And she said she struggled getting through Austen's book because it was so exposing and it was uncomfortable. And I got to tell you, I'm 3 chapters in, and I had to take a break of holy shit. And like, I want you to listen to it too at some point.
Yeah.
It's not a book that I listen to when I'm driving because I want to give it my full attention. And it's just really opened my eyes to just, you know, you live your life, you know what you know, and you really don't think about other people's perspectives. I think that's just kind of a human trait. And it's really been eye-opening, and I'm, you know, I hate that all this is going on, but I'm grateful that so many other people have been exposed to really this really deeply embedded backwards thinking, in particular in the South, but even in our own government. Like, it's been very exposing. I think I could talk about it for hours, but,
It's go ahead.
So I would say it forces people to open their eyes.
Yeah.
It forces people to have those uncomfortable conversations because they're needed. And even amongst your closest peers, your friends, if that conversation needs to be had and it's uncomfortable, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because of course, you know, your closest people who you're around, who you speak to, you know, that's not their mentality, you know, of racism and just things like that. You know, that's not, but it's also amazing to educate at the same time of like, even though we are friends, we live totally different, you know, aspects of life here. And the more that you see and understand, of course, the closer that we'll get, but the more knowledgeable you are and can either be, you know, an ally and help push and fight for it, or stand up against those or to those are like, yo, that's, what are you doing? Like when you see that happen, you know? So I think that forces people in a lot of positions to kind of do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. And I said at the top of the show that Jenna and I we didn't feel prepared. We didn't feel like an authority figure. We felt nervous, point blank. We felt nervous as white people trying to talk about particular Black problems. You know, it is what it is. And I was not nervous in the sense of cancel culture. Honestly, I was not worried about that. What I was worried about was getting on these mics and talking about some shit that I know nothing about, and possibly hitting someone in the heart for some shit that they've gone through all of their life. That is not what I wanted to do. So that's also why this movie is such a incredible stepping stone, segue, medium for us to talk about and relate to. But the very nervousness that she and I felt, I was like, that shit is why this is still continuing.
Yeah.
Because we're nervous to talk about it. And
well, and I felt more than just being nervous, I felt like I needed to do more to prepare, to absorb, to educate myself. True. And I think that's what I've realized most with this is just educating myself.
And I want to clarify real quick. I don't think because we've watched Black Panther, we understand what oppression is, but still, I think it's been, again, it's a good medium for us to at least be able to converse about.
It's a stepping stone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I love what you said, Matt, when it comes to that. And I think it's good if in the instance you do, you know, hit somebody in the heart when speaking about this, because again, it opens up the conversation. That way they can also speak to you on, okay, this is what I've experienced. This is what goes on. This is what's a reality in my world. And that will further along, one, educate, you know, and have the conversation with you guys to know, you know, how can we do better, where to go from here, how to progress and things like that nature, and to help understand. And through this, the biggest takeaway in kind of statement I've ran with and said, and it helps me, and it gives people an understanding of how to approach this. Like, oh wow, like you're right. And that saying is, you're not going to understand something that wasn't made for you, in quote unquote racism. So it's hard to grasp that when such a concept wasn't built for you and people like you and all kind of things like that, however you want to word it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the easiest way to kind of get people to take a step back, like, oh, okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
And some people that may be offensive to some people saying that may be eye-opening, but again, it's the reality
Yeah.
of it all.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it's... Jenna and I talked about this and how racism is so embedded in, I think, our everyday lives that we don't even realize. And if I'm being completely transparent, I feel really ignorant that it has taken me this long to get to this point and this thing. I know it's not one moment. I know that things have happened for decades, but this one thing absolutely has shifted, and this is different. This is different how it's impacted things. But we started thinking about how embedded racism is. And growing up, I had people around me that would always say, I'm not racist, but, or they would lower their voice when they said the black guy, or they would have to point out that that person, it had no bearing on the story, but they would always have to say it was a black woman. Like, what the hell? That has nothing to do with it. And I just think that shows how embedded the racism actually is. And I thought that was so interesting because I had never thought of that. Like, I have never been comfortable using the N-word. Like, I'm being dead serious. If I'm ever like rapping along in a song with the windows rolled up by myself, I am still not comfortable saying the N-word because it's just such an oppressive word.
Yeah. And I think something that I've learned just trying to, absorb some things is something that actually Austin, I think, made a point of, is that not saying that word doesn't make you not racist.
Yeah.
That just singles you out and pins you as definitely. But
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. That, being nice to someone doesn't make you not racist, because you still got your thoughts in your head.
Yep.
And you got to get past that. Something that she talks about a lot that really was exposing is nice white people are the problem, because you put on that face of, oh, hey, just nice, but that doesn't go deep enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's just what you...
It's like, oh, we're equal on the surface,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, just some of the things, I've read as far as the complaint of, taking down statues is changing history, and it's not. Like, where else in the world, and I could be wrong, maybe other places do this, but where else in the world do you fight a war and the losing side erects statues to commemorate these people? And on both sides, I mean, there's all these statues of these generals in Washington, D.C. too. I mean, that's just that backwards thinking is just so embedded.
Your point is that if they take the statues down, that is change. You don't believe that that's changing history.
No.
Right. Okay.
No, it's not honoring the side that very rightly lost.
Right.
I mean, the statue should have never been put up to begin with. And this is something that's actually actively happening in our town, and that's why I bring it up.
Well, and I do want to put a disclaimer out there. This is going to make it to YouTube. This is going to be all over the place. And I will tell you that our intention was to not censor ourselves. I refuse to do that. So in the comments, please keep it civil. I want you guys to converse, and your opinions need to be said. But this is a video that I will screen and I will delete comments if it's hate.
Mm-hmm.
If it's hate, I will get rid of it because there's no room for that shit. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I think I was kind of to the end, just that's not changing history. That doesn't change what's in the history book. That doesn't change what actually happened. It's just literally, let's commemorate the right people. Let's honor the right people. Let's honor who should be honored. I don't.
So you tell me, because again, I don't know. I've never. This, first of all, the statue that's being taken down or moved or whatever, I didn't even know it was there. Maybe that makes me a poor historian. But here's the deal: you tell me, John. Seeing these statues, I don't know if you've ever been to a museum or if there's statues in New York, which there are. Have you ever seen a statue and been like, "Shit, man! Like that is." That's oppressive. Like, that's oppressive to me. That's literally a symbol. I think the rebel flag is so evident of that, of like, it's oppressive. Have you ever looked at it and be like, that's a symbol of oppression for Black people?
To be completely honest with you, I haven't started thinking in terms of that aspect until all of this started happening. Okay. And then it made me take a step back to realize, like, wow, okay. There's a lot more up there than I thought.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you that taking them down does not change the historical front of them, because that's always going to be taught. That's always going to be there. That's always going to be something that they, burrow down. But I think for us in the community and the message that we're trying to convey to the rest of the world is, one, we shouldn't be honoring and immortalizing these people that did such horrible things to country, this people. And even though right now it's trying to make a stance, it's trying to show that the treatment of people, us and people like us, shouldn't be glorified in this country. And it shouldn't be glorified for anybody, no matter what it is. And the fact that it is, I think, is something that, and people's goal and mindset is to, I don't want to say reset history, but to make a new one that's all inclusive and accepting and as equal as you possibly can be. And not segregating those and whose ancestors have gone through everything in the wind, that this country tends to hold dear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, this is just sort of like my opinion on it, but you're right. It is a statue. It represents something, and it is history. But just because it is history, just because it is in bronze, doesn't mean that it was correct. Doesn't mean that it should be something that is honored. Because especially in the South, I know that it's. I think for a lot of people, it's tradition. And I think, especially for white people, it's like this is an attack on my history or my heritage or my whatever. Like, I visited that statue when I was 6 years old, and that I visited with my grandfather who's now gone. So I think there might be these nostalgic pieces built into it when they are sort of blinded to being able to be empathetic, to understanding that it still wasn't a right thing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, of course. Yeah. History isn't always right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But here's the good thing.
But it does repeat itself.
It does repeat itself. But here's the good thing. We can learn from history. Yeah. And I think that part also is why you don't delete history. You don't wipe it off the face of the earth, because but honoring that bad history.
And remembering it correctly.
Remember that you're 100%. Yep, exactly.
And you're so right as far as let's teach all of history.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Like, I didn't know what Juneteenth was until I was well into my adulthood. Yeah. There's so much of that history I just had no idea about. And I think you're absolutely right. You really hit that one on the head. Let's not change history. Let's teach all of the history.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's not pick and choose.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and briefly, I do want to touch on being white, never going through it. I set back whenever everything, quote unquote, started. And I felt really guilty because I didn't know what the hell to do. Like I couldn't post anything on social media knowing that I wasn't an authority figure. I had not been through this. I don't know. It was a strange place. And I want to say, this is not my crying about it, but it's to give context, I guess, because I know I'm not the only white person that's felt this, that I didn't know what the hell to do. I really didn't. With how much emotion is tied in this, the only thing I could think to do is to not add to the hate, to keep my mouth shut, to post a black screen that one day that everybody did because I knew that that was in support. But I even felt like I don't really know what Black Lives Matter means. So I did not post that because I didn't know what it meant, but I felt guilt. But I will tell you that if you are white and you are out there and you do feel guilt, the only thing that I can tell you, the best thing that you can do is to listen, to just keep your mouth shut and listen. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's how the tide starts to turn. Yeah.
And John, what would you say to us, to the listeners? How can we do better? What is something, maybe even a personal experience, maybe not, of just what's something that we can do better?
Before I get into that, to kind of dive into more of a few things of what Matt had said, I think a lot of people, like I said, were initially feeling that once this all started, that guilt, that what do I do, that how do I even go about this? And I think those are all good things to feel. I think they're all necessary things to feel, because as I said it before, now everybody's aware. Everybody has been aware for years. Things like this go on. Even granted, back then they were a lot more kind of minute. Now that the lid's kind of blown wide open, now everyone's eyes are open. So they're forced to be like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? How do I, those exact same feelings you were saying. And I think those are good things, because that's one step closer to figuring out how to be there, how to be a part of the solution, how to help and be an aid. And I think it starts with one recognizing. So you guys already know what's happening. You understand, you have that grasp, you know the difference between right and clearly wrong. I say the biggest thing is being there, being an advocate. I'm not saying every day of your life you have to be like, oh, Black lives, Black lives, Black lives, but being there, being that support system, educating others, whether that's in your own personal circle, whether it's at seeing somebody that's like, that's kind of off. Yeah. Being that voice of, empowerment, empowering equality. No matter what race you are, we can all do that. But coming from, white people, that's what you can do. It's just that realization, just being there, being that voice of inspiration, a voice of reason, and just standing by, I guess, equality. It's really simple. A lot of people think that you have to go so above and beyond this huge grand thing, and you have to just completely turn your life around and dedicate. It's not. The simplest things can have the biggest impacts if done correctly. Yeah. And it's just simple as that. We just ask that you hear us, you see it, you stand with us, know the difference between right and wrong, stand your ground with us, and be the advocate. And I always go back to this video because, like I said, it greatly, can I put this? It impacts me. I never forget this line of Black men and women on their knees in a park in the center of a field with cops all surrounding them, beating people, arresting people, spraying people, and this one white woman, this young girl, she gets up, she stands in front of these black men and women with the police essential fire squad standing directly in front of them with guns straight to their face. She comes and she says, and she stands right in front of them, if you want to do this, you have to get through me. It's things like that, when people have that mentality where they are willing to put their lives on the line to stand up for something right for people that have no say, and whether they get to live or die or have a right in anything in this country. When you have people that do that, that is the right step. Not saying all of you should go out there and jump in front of a gun right now because something happens, but
it's a good visual.
Having that mentality, that mindset, and to say, oh, I've had enough. Even though I'm not part of this racism, what's going on, I'm not on the receiving end of it. I've had enough of seeing it. I've had enough of hearing about it. I've had enough that this is still a thing in our country that our people go through in a state or in a country that we all should be looked at the same.
Mm-hmm.
We all should have the same equal rights. We all should have the right to live, and nobody should take that away just because of the color of our skin. And it shouldn't be our own, justice system. It shouldn't be our own police system that kills and unjustly incarcerates people of color just because they're different or they're taught so, or because in their eyes they see somebody walking down the street, a black man with a business suit, but in their eyes they're still a thug. It's those things that when people stand up and say we've had enough on the opposite side of white culture, when you can say that, that is the beginning of something just truly magical and to get us to where we need and should be already.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's beautifully said.
Yeah, and so the thought you just sprung in my head was the actual footage of George Floyd. I do not remember, and I could be dead wrong here, but I do not remember a killing by police. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, I'm not arguing that. I don't remember so much of unison of everyone saying, God, that was wrong. Like how that played out, that was wrong. And, I'll be flat out honest with you. I've seen some of the other deaths that have happened, and the footage was the cell phone video was started halfway through, so you didn't see the beginning of it, and then but this was just so definitive. Like I have not talked to one person that's been like, well, say it again.
This was just pure evil. Like there was
no way around it, and it was just I just thought that was so different about this. It was so big that just. I have not talked to one person that was like, well, like everybody's like, that shit was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that alone says why this just feels different. But anyway, let's sort of segue into Black Panther a little bit and how
I can't say, sorry, I can't to cut you off.
Sure.
I can't personally say like I haven't met or heard people make arguments.
Get the hell out of here. Are you serious?
Yeah. There's been quite a few. And the biggest one is, of course, they got him for doing something illegal, something that didn't even warrant misdemeanor at that. Mm-hmm. Not going to deny anything of that nature, but nobody deserves to be treated like that, even if something is done wrong.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a way that you go about that. Everyone is deserving of due process and justice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And just because somebody is, just to throw something out there, selling a Lucy outside of a store,
right?
You don't sit here and choke him to death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you feel it's right to because of the color of his skin, and he's just getting another menace off the streets. And so I've met, not to cut you off or anything, but I've met a few people that have made a lot of arguments on why that was either A, justified, why he was in that position. And yeah, so pretty disgusting.
Jesus Christ. And see, I had not heard that. I have not. Good Lord. Well, and it's, another thing is like the nature of that choke. Yeah. It was, I mean, none of them have ever been justified that have ever resulted from an anoxic brain injury, being choked out and dying. You lose blood flow to the brain. But I don't know. Like, I guess someone saying like he was restraining him because he was fighting and all that. But I don't agree with that. But I'm saying that like his knee was on his back, in his neck, like ultimately in his throat, and I don't know. And I don't know.
No, and he was just so casual and just so nonchalant, hands in the pocket, like he was sitting there pumping gas.
Yeah.
Literally taking a man's life.
Yeah.
And that's what's also just so evil about it, because he's feeling nothing. He's just like, this is another one today. Like, it's feeling nothing. And it blows my mind because I didn't read too much into it, but I saw the video surface and an article about it. And I believe, I could be completely wrong, but somebody in the comments that ends up watching this knows exactly where it is. I think it was Vegas, to where a cop just apprehended another person of color with a knee to the neck. I'm like, have we not learned anything on what had just happened? And this whole situation sparked so much in the community in the world. And, we've had the riots, we've had the protests, and it's so, I'm going to put this, it blows my mind that during this time when people were trying to stand up and protest for something right and justice and equality and all that, these riots were going on. And through this, this nation still found a way to make the Black community, as villains, as the problem, as the issue. These riots, granted, we haven't all been innocent through these riots. We have started, but majority of the big ones that kind of started this has been known on camera, as shown, as, declared and proven, that is white officers going around to these essential neighborhoods, all decked out and all black, having their mask covered until they were, shown, busting windows, breaking into establishments, causing this uprising so that the media can be like, hey, look at what they're doing now.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we're not the ones inciting this in the beginning of it all. So it just hurt. Like, even when we're at our lowest and this country puts us that, they just keep going.
So what you're saying is, even in the moments of we're going to peacefully take a stand and talk about this, it's almost like we're set up. Like, we're set up to make it look like we are being violent or we are being destructive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's at a time where we should be being heard, listening, where people should take accountability and see what's going on. We're just adding fuel to the fire. Oh, see what happens when, now this community is in an uproar. Look how they act as animals and savages. Look what they're doing now. So it's all a setup to still lessen and to deteriorate and degrade the African-American community and worth in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. For a brief second, I will say this, that I'm not defending any of it, but I will say that I can't imagine being a police officer. That role is ungodly difficult. Difficult. I still don't think that we're trained enough. I'm saying we. Sorry, I don't believe that police officers are trained enough, and it sucks because that's an incredibly difficult role to be in.
Yeah.
And but what is happening right now is not working.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's really exposed. And coming back to the basis of this podcast, it's really exposed the significant lack of mental health that these police officers are receiving, because they see these horrific things just on a daily basis, and they lose that sense of like, this is wrong. Where's my line that I draw? They lose that off button of like, okay, I've done what I needed to do. Now it's time for me to step back and reset. They lose that, and
It's mental fatigue.
Right.
Yeah.
It's mental fatigue, and I've felt it in my nursing career. I worked in an ICU setting, and I remember feeling a desensitization to incredibly sick people. And, that's not how it should be. That is mental fatigue. Again, not defending police officers that have done that, but it's very obvious that there's something wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how you keep the good ones good, is supporting that mental health.
Right. And that's funny because I was going to just dive into that a little bit as well. I do also feel bad for, certain, cops. I want to say all, obviously.
Sure.
But the good ones. And it does suck to be a cop right now, because if you are a cop on the right side, you can't show it.
No, you can't.
And there's a lot of people that caught on camera, video, or have just flat out quit because of what's going on. Mm-hmm. There's people standing in front of a mob of protesters and people trying to do right and try to plead, that they can't even emote or even, relate or say, like, I feel you in that.
Yeah.
And there's cops literally sitting there fighting back tears because they know if they say something, and it's been proven and shown that those who have in the middle of that, they even have to hide it, or if they do say it, boom, the next day they're kicked off the force and the reputation and their career is done because they stood up for what's right. And that sucks, because now you're in a corrupt system that not only are you killing people just for the hell of it, but you're disregarding and you're scrutinizing and you're crucifying your own people that want to stand up and help those who have essentially no voice at the same time. So it's like, where do you win? Especially if you are, not only where do you win as a country, as a people, but where do you win if you're an officer in that environment? You just simply can't.
Well, and you're 100% right. It sucks because a lot of police officers are walking right now. And
I don't blame them.
I cannot imagine being in the role in it. Like you said, the good cops, the cops that are there for the right reasons, that want to say something but can't. I cannot imagine, like you just said, standing there. And I've seen the videos where they're standing there fighting back tears, where they want to say it, where they're mouthing the words because they know they can't say it out loud. And that puts goosebumps on me, because that is just, it's terrible. And it makes the police force even worse. And that sucks. That sucks. And it's, honest to God, what all of this is about is behavior change. I hate to pull it back and plug our little podcast, but honestly, it's that behavior change piece of listening, being empathetic, and knowing that a change has to happen. And it's honestly, I feel that it starts with you. It starts with you. I won't even try to begin to be like, this is how we fix it as a whole. I don't know. I don't have those answers, but I do know that changing yourself and trying to listen, that's a damn good start.
That is.
And anyway, so that's why Black Panther was just so huge. That's why we did connect. And thank you to the subreddit. I appreciate it. And you tell me, what do you think? Do you think, what if we would have done Black Panther and watched it, say, a year ago before this happened? Obviously, my emotions, your emotions, Jenna, and everybody that was watching it probably wouldn't have been as high. Do you think that this would have happened, how it played out? I know it's tough to like theorize that. Right. Who will never know the answer, but
right. Theoretically, I would say that there was a big chance that it probably wouldn't have, because it wouldn't have hit the way that it did or needed to. I would have loved the reaction regardless, because it's Black Panther. It's something I even hold dear.
Yeah.
Even when it came up before all this got bad, because obviously we're viewing it from different sides. So it's even, of course, it hits a lot harder today, but these are things that I think of, that we think of in the community when that movie came out, when all those messages were being shown, when that end credit scene was speaking about unity and things of that. These are things that we've already gotten from that, like, oh my God, that's the reason why that movie hit so hard.
Yeah.
So even in the slightest, me personally, I probably still would have made the video, even if there was a slightest recognition of,
Yeah.
holy hell, like,
Okay.
okay, I got it, or I see it, or just the pure enjoying
Yeah.
of it that you did before it even got to anything race-based or going heavy. Enjoying it the way you guys did, I probably still would have been like, wow, okay, this is amazing. They're seeing Black Panther, they love it, we're on the same length. I still probably would have done it, but in terms of how hard that it hit, it probably wouldn't have.
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly. And just to give a little context, and by the way, his video, the Black Panther video, I'm going to plug it in the description below. If you guys have not seen it, you need to watch both of them because it'll give you the full context. But I remember when we were starting to shoot that video, all of us, we were all like, let's do our best to maybe steer clear of the political pieces. Let's keep this as, let's just watch our movie. And halfway through the movie, I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Right.
So just to give you guys some context of like what we were going through, to not even to sort of be careful with our conversation, even then,
Yeah, and that's what I valued from that as well, because the position that you guys were in. Like I said, I've seen quite a few people do reactions and commentary on Black Panther, and it's just like, oh, it was a cool movie, yay, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
and missing a lot of the elements and themes and everything that was going on. Or if they did see it, they're just like, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
You guys challenged yourselves and took it upon yourselves to say, you know what? We tried to. It was like, we tried to avoid it, but this is just something that we just simply cannot.
Yeah.
And it's things like that is where I say, and going back to your question, Jenna, is how you can make a difference, is how you can educate and be a part of the progression, is those words right there. It's like, listen, we shouldn't, but you know what? Oh, we couldn't, but we should. There's just no way around it. And that's when you confront things head on. And that's when you say, okay, you know what? I'm here. I'm listening. I'm willing.
Yeah.
And that's the most important step.
Go ahead, were you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to comment in general. I think Black Panther is just the epitome of what comics and comic movies really can do for everyone.
Yep.
I think this movie was, just a cinematic, just fantastic movie as far as the storytelling, as far as getting invested in so many characters rather than just the main character.
Yeah.
How, just the music, the colors and just everything was just so vibrant and so I really felt like I lost myself in this movie. It's great escapism. But there's so many lessons to be learned too, that I think no matter how old you are, you can pick up on different lessons to be learned. And I think that's something that I've really learned with the comic movies, is that I just always thought comics to me meant like the funny strips in the newspapers and not these really deep
I did not expect
characters that do all these courageous things and teach children, even or whoever's reading these comic books. They teach these really valuable, deep life lessons. And I honestly never would have got that. I never would have guessed that before.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and it's something that, another thing that this film does that nobody really talks about, but it's, of course, we have the face value of it, of, racism, between whites and blacks and things of that nature. We get that. But it also challenges us within our own community. And that's not talked about enough either.
Okay.
We're within our own community. We have our own oppression amongst ourselves. We have our own judgments amongst ourselves. We have our own turning the other cheek. We have judgment amongst our own. And that's something we do not talk about. And is a huge issue as well. so the film hits on a lot of educational points and aspects. Of course, pure racism is at the forefront, but there's so many different layers to that film. And that's why villains and people like Killmonger are so important and so vital, because yeah, he's villain by definition, but is he truly? His methods may be extremely crazy.
Sure.
What he's fighting for, what he says, what his father says in the beginning of the film is, we are our own people, but yet we do not help our own. We turn the other cheek and we should be aiding. We aren't as unified as we should be. And that's what I'm saying. This whole movement now challenges so much, no matter what race you are. Everybody has a role to play. And that's why Black Panther is so important. That's why it's so vital, because it literally touches on those aspects that a lot of film or people don't dare to really go, especially in comic book films.
Tell me this. Can you elaborate on what you just said as far as basic, from what I understood, you just said in our own community, we're not as good as we could be. Is that what you mean? Is that what you said?
Or like unified?
Like unified, sorry.
Yeah, so there is, of course we are unified now, but of course these things, well, to a greater degree, wasn't always that way. There is colorism amongst our own community. There is classism amongst our own community. So even everything that we are also fighting for outside of ourselves, we also do have within our own community. And it's not talked about enough. For whatever reason, I don't know, but it could also be, I want to speak for all, but majority our Black community, we're prideful in a sense. And a lot of things we kind of turn a blind eye to within our own community, whether it's, homosexuality, whether it's classism, whether it's, colorism, the dark skin, light skin.
Got it.
All of that goes on within our community, and it's not talked about enough. So that's kind of to elaborate a little more on what.
Got it.
Right.
So I do want to hit this quote because I'm working on a video as we speak, and it has to do with the actual Bygone Gym moments. If you're not new to the series, you know what it is. If you're brand new to the series, you have no idea what I just said. Basically, a Bygone Gym moment is a moment in a film that hits me and is notable, that is of value, that brings a lesson. How that came about was I just didn't know how to say the word Qui-Gon Jinn from Star Wars. I kept calling it Bygone Jim, and I've forever credited him with that because he always had knowledge bombs. So let me find the actual quote from Black Panther.
And the impact on everything.
Yes. So this line at the end, and I know, John, you and I agree with this, that this summed up the entire movie.
The words of beauty.
I watched it 3 times, like immediately. Watched it the first time, I was like, Holden, stop recording. Like, I have to hear this 2 more times at least. But I wrote it down verbatim. Will work to be an example of how we should treat each other. Illusions of division threaten our very existence. We are more connected than divided. In times of crisis, wise men build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another as if we were one single tribe. I get goosebumps. I have goosebumps right now. I get goosebumps every time I say it and hear it. And that part of that movie just, you can't see it because I shaved my arms, but I got goosebumps. It was just so friggin' powerful. And I don't know, man. I loved it so much. And I'm saying it right now that it might be my favorite film in the MCU. That's sort of been some of the question of what are your favorite films and whatnot.
Yeah, it's for sure mine.
I really do think it is. We haven't seen the last
two, but
I just don't know how it's going to be beat. It was such an incredible film.
Yeah,
it was.
That end credit scene, that whole paragraph, that whole speech, everything. Like I said, even to this day, and I've seen it like 50 billion times, I still get emotional every single time because it's just a combination of things. And it's just, through the performances, the emotion conveyed through Chadwick, through the rest of the actors along there, the music by Ludwig Göransson, everything, everything brought together. Like I said, it sums up the film, but it's a perfect, 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 and perfect way to describe the inspiration, the goal of what is happening today, verbatim, perfectly.
Yep.
And that doesn't matter what race you are, what class you are, it doesn't matter. Unity, unify. We should be treating each other like you said, as if we were one single child, because we are.
Yeah.
We are, and it's funny. Like, I love Jane Elliott, and one of the courses she has is only one race, the human race. That's it. And that exactly sums up exactly who we are as just people.
Yeah.
The hell with it. Fuck it. There's no black, there's no white, there's no yellow, there's no brown. We are human. We are people. And that's why that end credit scene hit so much. Because like you have this, and it's almost like I don't want to say a plead, but it's like you have this fictional, of course, but yet you have this powerful Black figure standing up, speaking to the world, asking for unification, asking for, equality, asking to see, and at the same time saying, listen, I know where I haven't been the most perfect person, especially when it comes to my own people, but here I am making a difference to give back and help the way that I can. So it's knocking out, like I said, those layers in one scene, multiple layers that resonate today.
I agree. I think if you take one word out of that entire speech, that it takes away from it. And every single, as I'm looking at it, every single line could be its own podcast.
Right.
It really is incredible. It really is incredible.
It is. Every single line. It's insane. It's insane.
It is.
Yeah. And I think, those of you that have stuck with us this long, thank you.
Yes.
Those of you that are watching, those of you that are listening, there's a chance that you don't agree with something that we've covered or talked about. And I agree that there's probably something that we could have said more eloquently.
Sure.
But I think the point at the end of the day is that we're having this conversation to do better and to move in the right direction.
Yep. And I will say, for anybody that is truly hurt by any words that we've said, I hope that you know that there was not one shred, not 1 ounce of hate, evil, negativity in us. I hope that you'll spend a little bit more time with us and getting to know who we are, and know that this podcast was born out of love and support, and was our attempt to listen and to be there. So John, I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking about, yes, Black Panther, but such a sensitive topic, and to put yourself out there in the world, to put yourself and be so transparent. It's incredible. It's incredible. Thank you. And if I'm being transparent, I think that I have made a friend for the rest of my life because of
damn right.
a friggin' movie. I'm so fired up about that. Whatever I say about Marvel in the My Friend Watches series from now on, I promise that I will always say that I love Marvel because of Black Panther and this connection that it's done.
Yeah.
Seriously. All of the shit has been worth it because of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely, wholeheartedly, man. And I feel the exact same way. Like I said, you're goddamn right to have a friend for life, man. And it's amazing that all of this was able to come from that. And for those, again, watching, I, repeat their sentiment. This will never be a perfect conversation. There'll never be a quote unquote appropriate, non-sensitive type way to have this conversation. But every single one of them is necessary. It may get heated. It may get crazy. It may be in a difference of opinions, but again, it's all needed. An honest conversation always needs to happen for this topic if we're going to get anywhere. And again, I hope people that are watching know and realize and see the difference. If you don't agree, talk about it. Like Matt said, respectfully, of course, but be honest because it has to happen. That's the only way we're going to grow
Yep.
as a society, as a race, as a people. It's the only way. And whatever way you find that connection, like we did, find it, use it. If it's that uncomfortable, use that as a segue to open the gates to a much needed conversation. So, yes.
Absolutely. And again, to recap, I will say I will not delete anybody's comment for their opinion. That is not what I'm about. I promise I won't do that. I will only delete a comment if it is born of hate and it is attacking someone and it is not constructive. That's the only time I'm going to delete anything. I don't delete anything out of the comments most of the time. So, Jenna, you want to wrap it up?
I mean, I think we've done a pretty good
I think we did too.
wrap up. Yeah. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, it has.
And again, Jon, thank you so much for your time and thank you for talking with us so long about this. It's been a great conversation.
It has. And I think now's a perfect time to plug where can they find you, who are you, like all that on social.
So they can find me on Twitter using film_cave_JK. You can find me on Instagram. I'm .JonKnight_. I know I'm all over. It's hard to find one unified thing. And you can find my YouTube at Knight TFC, where you will see my show, The Film Cave Live, tons of segments, reactions, skits. And coming up this week, I will actually be a part of what we call Reactor Cons. That's covering all Comic-Con this week, Justice Con. So it's going to be a whole nerd out. So make sure you guys are there to participate. This hashtag ReactorCon. You can all see what us great creators are coming up with.
Heck yeah, man. All of the descriptions for everything we've talked about, all the links to find him will be in the description below. Brene Brown, the thing you mentioned, like everything will be down below. The original Black Panther reaction of ours, his reaction to our reaction. What a world. What a time to be alive. At the very end of it, I will plug it because I didn't plug it at the top. If you guys want to support this podcast, if you want to support the YouTube channel, the Matt Lane Fitness YouTube channel, you can do so by clicking the link below. It is Patreon. You can support us for as little as $5 a month. It helps us keep the lights on, creating better and more content for you. You never have to pay for our content. Do not feel obligated, but it's there if you want to.
Right. And I do want to play something really quick.
Sure.
I do challenge everyone who does see this and who will obviously watch this, share this. This is such an important conversation to have. Share it with anybody you may have. Share it to anyone you could think of. I know I will. Black Panther cast is going to get spammed like hell with this shit all over Twitter and everything else. Share it to whoever you can because, like I said, it's an important conversation to be had, and it's an amazing segue to do it. So please share this.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. Guys, well, listen. Have love in your heart. Don't be afraid to have the conversation and be there. Guys, we'll talk to you next week. We love you.
This has been the Better Than Yesterday Everyday Podcast. We want to thank you for listening and invite you to subscribe to the show as well. And follow Matt Lane Fitness on YouTube. Until next time, you don't have to be perfect. Just be better than yesterday every day.
Holy shit.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That was I think that was one of our, if not our very best podcasts that we've done. That was such a free flowing conversation. That was great.
That was very amazing. How are we feeling over there, sir?
You all right?
Are you all right, man?
I'm glad we had this conversation.
He's gonna you're gonna make me come on, man.
Shit was
Never been this long. You have me fucking crying. Come on, man.
That shit was just
Wow.
I don't know, man. You can't fake that shit, and that's probably the most important podcast we've done.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And this is what I'm talking about. It's stuff like this. This right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's all about. And this is what makes you and everybody else so goddamn important is this right here. You can't get this anywhere. You can't fake that. You can't bullshit that. These are the things that get us to where this world needs to be.
Yeah.
And now you know why I'm so just inebriated, just so in tune with you guys.
Yeah.
This right here. And like I said, I love you for it. And it's amazing, man. I thank you for that.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. We're all
Fuck
three
you
of
for
it.
making me cry. But